Hello there, wargaming enthusiasts! Welcome back to Combat Mission Red Thunder as thunder indeed strikes right over our heads. Right, so this is another battle that my habitual opponent Mirek and I are starting, and hopefully this is going to be a good one. And I say that because we've played a couple of battles before this one that were not saved for posterity because they were basically very frustrating and very undynamic, and nothing really happened. So yeah, they were all trashed. Yeah, rather we are going to start with this, and this is going to be an interesting one indeed because we've got a map that's mostly covered by trees. So there's forests everywhere, covering really most of the map, with very little buildings. There's just a one farmstead here that's not going to be useful to anybody, and there's another farmstead over here that might be slightly more useful, but that doesn't really overlook the other side, doesn't really give a very good vantage point onto the enemy positions, or what I think might be enemy positions. And in the middle of the map there is a river which has a couple of fords and one bridge on it. There's certainly the North Ford, which is a victory location. There's the South Bridge that I mentioned, that's also a victory location on the other side. There are a couple of fords here and there that I think are crossable by infantry at least. I think so. But I guess that will be verified in the actual game. But I think infantry will be able to cross over here. Yeah, we'll try that out possibly. But apart from there being a river, which which impedes all sorts of movement across, that river doesn't have a lot of foliage around it. So basically, what we have is a situation where most of the map is covered with very good terrain for hiding and moving and stuff like that, but the middle is basically open to enemy fire, and you can very easily find a position anywhere here that allows you to fire on the enemy on the other side. So approaching the river shouldn't be too difficult, except for the trees that will block the way, so possibly roads should be used, but once you get to the river, it's going to turn interesting. Right, and in addition to all that, we've got all this rain. Now, all this rain, which I think is a downpour, and we'll actually check in the condition to verify that. Yeah, it's a downpour. So that is the most rain that Combat Mission Red Thunder can give us. The weather's cloudy, it's warm, but yeah, it's definitely going to be very, very soggy. So that means the ground will be muddy, which means just traveling using tanks will not be that easy. So for that reason, we might get a lot of tanks stuck in their tracks, a lot of just equipment not being able to move here and there. Alright, so that's the map, that's the situation. Alright, and apart from the North Ford and South Bridge that are sort of in the middle of the map that need to be taken, there are two additional objectives, the West Road Junction and the East Road Junction. They're safely covered by the forests, and they will be relatively difficult to get to by either enemy. So most of the fighting will be over these two areas in the middle, the North Ford and South Bridge. And yeah, it's definitely something that we're going to be looking at here, fighting over these two objectives. Alright, that said, what actual units are we going to have? Wow, now it's so quiet now, without all that rain. Right, so I started with a tank regiment, but I've severely cut it down. It's got basically it's got the tank rider company, and it's got a company of tanks. Apart from that, there's a mortar battery and a target and a bunch of target reference points for that mortar battery. That's 3 to be exact. The mortar battery consists of 6 120mm mortars that should provide a lot of firepower that we can use in long distance, and in combination with those target reference points and an observer team that I've attached to the Tank Rider company, we should be able to relatively quickly fire at the enemy. Although mortars, the 120mm mortars, are not that accurate, so it's going to be area fire more than sort of pinpoint. Yeah, but they also have smoke, stuff like that, so we should be able to also obscure vision with them. And I've invested quite a lot of points in that artillery, so I will have to try and use them as best I can, or to the best of my abilities, because it would be a waste, well, to waste those points. Now, the tanks themselves that I'm using are T-34s, 85s in various configurations. We have the model 1943 in the as the tank regiment commander, and then we've got 4 tanks in a platoon and acting as company command. These tanks here are going to be basically the latest model tanks, which have APCR ammo, which might be useful firing long range at long ranges against enemy heavy machines of whatever kind we face. We are also attaching a assault gun, the ISU-122 assault gun, to our platoon because it seems to me that the enemy has taken a liking, or that my actual human enemy has taken a liking to fielding tigers and stuff like that. And the T-34-85 might be able to take out Tiger, but the ISU-122 should certainly be able to do some damage there. So we're going to use these 4 tanks, or these 5 tanks rather, as sort of our main fighting units, and then we're going to use the ISU-122 as the anti-tank resource. Now, the infantry actually is really cut down because I basically ran out of points very quickly. So we've got here a headquarters team, and we've got 1 platoon. And the platoon is extended by a sniper team. Apart from the sniper team, they're all SMGs. And to be honest, we are actually going to use them more like scouts than anything else, which is sort of typical for these armored engagements. Yeah, the battles when I use infantry for actual main assaults and stuff like that turn out to be very boring and very bloody and very drawn out. So yeah, that's why you get to see mostly the battles where I use infantry as scouts. Alright, so these are our scouts. We've got our tanks, a platoon of them with a little bit extra. And we've got our mortars and target reference points. And that's pretty much it. Now, what the enemy fields, I have no idea. I expect heavy equipment like heavy tanks, maybe possibly even a Tiger II. If the enemy fields a Tiger II, it's going to be an interesting engagement that we have to fight through. If we see Tiger, stuff like that, well, there's always a chance he'll get stuck in the mud. If he gets stuck in the mud, we've got our 120mm mortars, which may or may not take out the Tiger. Apart from that, I'll try to use my mobility. Well, okay, so basically I've got a very basic, very sort of immediate plan for the battle, and it's going to be something slightly different than I usually use, I hope. That is, it's not going to consist of a mad charge at the beginning. Rather, it's going to be a lot of scouting with infantry for the first, let's say, half of the battle, where we're going to try and find places where the enemy is or might be, and then we're going to try and fire at them from whatever positions we can find, after which we might try a sort of aggressive advance all the way across the river and sort of secure a bulkhead, not a bulkhead, a foothold across the river, and try to fight our way to the other of the 2 middle objectives. At the same time, I don't know what the enemy is going to do. If the enemy rushes forward quickly, we might let him into our part of the river and try to take him out there. This might be an interesting tactic. If the enemy stays back, we might have to provide some more artillery barrage. So I'm not fixing my plan straight ahead. However, I will be moving up rather slowly, or I hope I will be moving up rather slowly than I usually do. And I'm probably going to use the flanks a lot more. I'm kind of afraid of the enemy using artillery to pin my troops while I advance, which has happened before, and which also we might be doing as well. So yeah, it might be okay. So there might be a bit of a drawn-out phase at the beginning of the battle where I sort of set up my troops the way I want them to, but afterwards it should be pretty dynamic and pretty fun. And that said, see you guys when we deploy our troops, which I think is in the next email exchange. So yeah, bye.